Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Azeroth Daily for the 26th or the 27th, depending on where you are, of January 2011. My name is TotalBiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of WoW news and comment. In the headlines today, archaeology changes abound once again in the new build of the PTR patch, which is 13561. You may remember that some of the archaeology grey items got buffed up to absolutely absurd levels in terms of the actual sell value of them, particularly the Word of Empress Zoe for 1,000 gold. That has now been changed, although on aggregate this is going to be better for people because the values of the other stuff has been raised, but the ridiculous ones, like say the Word of Empress Zoe, that's been reduced. So if we have a look at it right here, you see the Word of Empress Zoe has gone down to 375 gold as opposed to 1,000. What I'd also like to note is the fact that the troll artifacts aren't worth an awful lot, and I think that's probably because people tend to farm those to get the Zinrock. So I imagine they're trying to balance it around that. Whatever the case, the full list is available pretty much exclusively on MMO Champion, so the link to that is in the description below this video. Being the first guild to clear all Cataclysm heroic content, Paragon has now released a statement in regards to Cataclysm raiding, and they said, "This is it, Cataclysm's first tier of raiding has finally been finished. We're quite satisfied with how everything went, despite some setbacks along the way. Right now, we're probably even happier to be able to go back to our one-day-a-week raiding schedule after the merciless non-gated grind. Alakia was a rather merciless boss overall. The difference on this particular boss is absolutely massive in 10-man compared to 25-mans due to area scaling. Congratulations to Dream, though, for getting the world first in 10-man. Here's to hoping the 25-man version of Alakia won't get hotfixed or nerfed too soon. Everyone else should go through the same soul-draining wipes that we had to endure." Thanks to all the Paragon members for giving their best and making it possible for us to perform as good as we've done. Also thanks to all the supporters and people who have traveled the journey with us. Thanks also go to SteelSeries and Asus, and most of all, thanks to Blizzard. You may remember a little while ago that the 200 rating weapons were delayed due to the problems with the way that the rating system was working and the exploit that was in place at the time. As a result, the scheduling for the release of those weapons was put back to January the 25th, but that has now been delayed once again, and Daxari confirms that the 200 weapons will not be available until approximately 2 weeks after the release of patch 4.0.6. Of course, we have absolutely no idea when that's coming out. It's certainly not this week, so yeah, you're going to be waiting a little bit of time for those actual weapons. Their justification for it is simply that the weapons are extremely powerful and that very few guilds are currently clearing PvE content that drops weapons of this caliber. So they don't want to make rated battlegrounds and arenas the primary source for top-tier weapons, because of course that would not be a particularly good idea. I've seen that before. TBC would be a prime example. The latest episode of the EU Community News is now available on the EU Battle.net website, including information from Hungarian site WoW Hungary, who have posted a guide to the Heroic Vortex Pinnacle, as well as Finnish site Goblin Explosives Network that have had a look at archaeology. All this including a roundup of this week's comics and notable forum threads available in the description below this video. And if you feel like asking the Blizzard creative team a few questions in regards to the lore, that's the creative development department, which is headed up by Chris Metzen, then there is now an Ask Dev forum post, and I would recommend that you go and leave something worthwhile in there. There is also a nice little concessionary nod to the red shirt guy saying there, well, they're to ensure the cohesive and correct use of characters and lore, red shirt guys notwithstanding. Indeed, if you want to go leave a question for the lore team, you can do so. The link, as always, in the description below this video. And with that, it's time for your Daily Blues. Bashiok gets in a bit of a tussle with Turkish, who says, well, blues with their minds closed, which is a interesting syntax. However, you will discover as to why as we go through the thread, and oddly enough, he's actually edited the original post and now believes that the blues are tons of fun. Before this, he said that they were not. Bashiok responds with, and then follows up with some rather interesting posts, I have to say, and it gets weirder and weirder and full of fantastic Star Trek The Next Generation references. Now, he firstly assumes that this contextless post actually has something to do with a thread which has got nothing to do with that. But then again, how can you tell when you don't post the context of what you're complaining about? What use is that, I have to ask? And he goes on to say, Shaka, when the walls fell. Yeah, if you don't get that reference, you have to hand in your nerd card right now, I'm afraid. Right now. And he then points out, of course, yes, I have no idea which thread you were actually pointing out. So, great job, congratulations. And then ends out with the fact that he doesn't actually like this place anymore. Oh, poor Pashiok. I appreciate the humor and the candor, however. Indeed. And also a little bit of counter-trolling right there with a Star Trek reference. Nothing wrong with that at all. Anemia appears to have an anemic brain, unfortunately, claiming that Blizzard endorses pedophilia. No, I'm deadly serious. She is actually claiming this. Unbelievable, really. Goes on to say that she publicly accused another player of pedophilia in a public channel and then got suspended as a direct result of that. Evidently not understanding not only the spelling of endorse, but of slander and defamation. Halsico clarifies that they do not, in fact, support, endorse, or any variation thereof when it comes to the serious nature of pedophilia, but also points out that it is not okay to accuse people of that in a public channel. Of course it's not okay to do that. My God, do you have any understanding of the way not only the law works, but reasonable society works? You can't just go and call people pedophiles in public channel. You can't be freaking serious. Unbelievable behavior from Anemia right there. Absolutely ridiculous. I swear, some people simply do not engage their brains before using the internet. I don't care if the accusation is true or not, you simply don't accuse people of that. Good God, think about it, please. You know, that would solve an awful lot of issues on the internet. That would be wonderful. Shame it's never gonna frickin' happen. Anemia, you are an absolute tool. And with that, it's time for your daily grind. We are finally reaching the end of the Mighty Maximilian's quest line, and indeed we are asked to assist him with the defeat of the Devilsaur Queen. You know, I have to say I do feel a little bit put out by this. I do look ridiculous. You know, it's a horse. Trolls don't ride horses. We look really silly. The quest ends with you throwing the various pieces of armor from Maximilian's body at the Devilsaur Queen, as well as a bunch of rocks. Yeah, a great end to a great quest line. And you get one of these. You can get yourself a trinket which summons a lance that will fight for you. Absolutely fantastic. Well worth doing there. Big fan of that one. And with that, it's time for your weekly feature. It is the Court of Law. As promised, we're going to be taking a look at the second zone of Cataclysm in this 5-part series, and we're going to be talking about Vashir. So, Vashir is located southeast of the Maelstrom off the west coast of Khazmadan. Unsurprisingly, the name is related to Lady Vash and her mother, Lestharia Vash, who was the leader of this particular area. It used to be a city, in fact, before the Great Sundering violently reshaped Azeroth and drowned the entire area. Very little was known about the area since, until a message in a bottle was discovered, containing a dire plea for help. Need your help. Time is short. I'm held captive in what I hope to be a nightmare. Enjoying the ocean air just days ago, we were determined to control key trade routes through victory at sea over the Horde. Their fleet came into our scopes. Our world became the deafening sound of battle, the smell of gunpowder, and the feeling of fear. Looking back now, though, that wasn't real fear. We weren't alone in those waters. Our naval warfare attracted attention and rendered us prey. With our vessel already torn apart and taking on water, we saw a tremendous creature rise from the depths and shatter the hull, sucking us down to the sea floor. It all happened so fast. I was quick to tread the waters, hoping to regroup with any survivors I could find through a dense garden of kelp, constantly gasping for a chance breath. That's when the onslaught began. From all directions, swarms of brutal Naga swept through and captured a great many of us. Beaten near to death, I awoke in agony, bound in chains. And here I still sit. I can only describe our prison as very big and somehow very much alive. We're in the hands of the Naga now. Surviving crewmates in better condition than me are driven into slave labor. One escaped, Thomas. He didn't make it far before I saw him dragged back. Before being forced into labor, he spoke in a panic about some large seashell protecting this living prison, expansive night elf ruins in the distance, and strange Naga rituals underway, as well as Sea Vrykul battling our captors. He made little sense. Could be mad, or I could be mad to hope that Vrykul are fighting to free us. Prison patrols out again. Send word to Stormwind. Sunken city far from extinct. Naga plotting something horrific. Please help. The Naga of Queen Ashara have overwhelmed the area, attempting to seize control of an ancient power from the realm of Neptulon the Tidehunter. The giant squid Ozumat is responsible for destroying the ships which enter the area, as well as attacking Neptulon in the Throne of Tides. Using the power of Ozumat and the old gods, the Naga intend to destroy Neptulon and seize his power for themselves. And with that, it's time for the mailbox. This one comes in from Peter, who says, "Hey TB, since yesterday I played the beta of Rift." Now, as you might imagine, I'm sort of having to translate this because it's in broken English. This is the first time I saw content or played content of Rift, and however, I've heard about it before the beta. Going up to level 10, everything is just like WoW in my opinion. I don't know if you've played it already. Lots of names of items and spells are the same, the way macros and key bindings are set up is the same, and the way of questing is the same. The worst part is I play a mage like in WoW. When I do talents in Rifts, almost like 60% of the talents there are identical to WoW talents. For example, in WoW you have a talent called Burning Soul in the Fire Mage tree, whereby you've got a chance of avoiding spell interruption. In Tier 1 of the talents in Rift, you have the exact same talent. Not that I hate Rift, it's got some features that are cool like hybrid specs, but I'm wondering what your opinion is on this matter. Well, you're talking about being derivative of a game that is highly derivative. WoW is unbelievably derivative. It takes and borrows elements from all manner of different games and has continued to do so over the last 6 years. It's taken elements wholesale from various different MMORPGs and has also taken ideas in whole cloth from mod makers. Like, for instance, have a look at Power Auras. It's identical. It's absolutely identical to the old Power Auras mod. They just took that entirely. This game is a patchwork development of derivative ideas that were taken up and polished and put into a greater whole. So, are you blaming any game for taking ideas from not only the most successful MMO, pretty much in Western markets, but also a game that has taken ideas from other games? It's always the case when it comes to game development. It's not only derivative, but it's iterative. It's building upon these various previous incarnations of different pieces of software. So, I don't really have a problem with that. The only problem I've got is that if they're going to make a game that's very similar to WoW in certain respects, and I know it's not similar in all respects because I've seen the videos, I know quite a bit about Rift, I just have no interest in playing it, then I have to ask, why would I go play this game instead of World of Warcraft, which has had 6 years to polish its content and has a ton of content available? Why would I take a risk on a new MMO? Continuing on with the MMO theme, Arcane just comes out with this. Hello, TB, I'm a follower of your very entertaining show for quite some time, and since you play quite a few MMOs, I thought of this. Don't you think it's about time that developers tried a completely new theme for MMORPGs? In other words, all the MMO games I've seen so far are either Dungeons & Dragons, Lord of the Rings based, or superhero based, or something along the very expected lines of common fiction. New games so far looked pretty much the same, and it's kind of upsetting in my humble opinion. I don't mind these kind of games at all, provided they're good, but don't you think it's about time we see something completely new? Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, there are other types of games. You talked about science fiction MMOs, but bear in mind, the sci-fi MMOs that are actually successful pretty much consist of Eve, and that's really about it. I'm trying to think of anything else. You know, would you count Global Agenda? It's barely an MMO, so probably not. Science fiction MMOs don't really seem to do a particularly good job. There are a few still alive. Anarchy Online would be a prime example. Star Wars Galaxies barely clings to life. And of course, we've got The Old Republic coming out that is probably going to be the biggest sci-fi-based MMO besides Eve in a very, very long time. The problem is, if I'm totally honest, that doing things in different areas is risky. It really is. I mean, I would like to see MMOs based in, say, wartime. You know, I'd like to see an MMO based in World War II that isn't World War II Online, which is a terrible game. You know, I suppose World of Tanks is coming out, if you want to count that, but it's not really the same thing. You know, it's just tanks. I'd like to see other things like that. I'd like to see stuff maybe based in Rome or ancient Greece or things like that. And we've seen games that tried to come out that covered those areas, and it ended up being cancelled because, again, it's very, very risky to do it. I'd also like to see more sci-fi MMOs that aren't terrible. And let's be honest, there are a lot of very bad sci-fi MMOs. Admittedly, there are a lot of bad MMOs in general. But yeah, I do think it needs to diversify, absolutely, without question. There are too many fantasy MMOs. There are too many superhero MMOs now. You know, there are now 3 active, which I think is probably enough. So absolutely, 110%, we do need something that isn't World of Warcraft. This one comes in from Eurobane, who says, I've been playing WoW for about 2.5 years and have recently been gearing up for Cataclysm, Heroics, and Raids. I recently joined a dungeon group and was criticised on my lack of gems and enchants. What I've been wondering is this, is there a proper point in time when one should really start investing in gems and enchants? If so, when is that? Well, if you're gearing up for Heroics and Raids, that will be the point where I started taking my enchants seriously. Bear in mind, nobody in their right mind is asking for you to have Power Torrent and the really hardcore enchants, and if they are, they're absolutely retarded, and you should just ignore them. But bear this in mind, enchanting your gear isn't actually that expensive, particularly with the lower level enchants, and it does give you a boost, and of course it does help your heroic groups. It really shows that you're actually serious about things, and I think that's probably what people want more than anything. You know, in reality, the differences are not that major, especially not when you just go into heroics. In raids, absolutely. If you don't go into a raid with at least the lower tier enchants, then I would have to question what you're doing, because if you're sitting in 3, 4, 6 and it's unenchanted and ungemmed, then really, you know, what are you doing? That is lazy. That is actually not showing dedication to it. But when you gear up for heroics, you know, there's no harm in throwing some in there. especially if you know that you're not going to replace that gear for a while. To me, as an enchanter, it's a little bit easier, because I just sort of enchanted my gear by default, because I've usually got spare mats rolling around, but usually the lower level enchants are worthwhile, as are the lower level gems. If I were you, though, I wouldn't be touching the higher level enchants or gems with a 10-foot barge pole until you at least get full item level 359, and even now, a lot of people are refusing to do it, because stuff like Power Torrent is so goddamn expensive. You know, you're looking at the use of Maelstrom crystals that everyone absolutely despises. Ugh, no question. Okay, folks, that's me done for the day. Thank you ever so much for watching Azeroth Daily. Please remember to thumb it up if you like it. Please thumb it down if you do not like it. That is what it's there for. And I will see you next time.